Good morning and welcome to a Facebook Blueprint module all about the do's and don'ts of advertising. I'm live, so you can use the chat window if you're on Zoom. If you're also on Zoom, you can use things like the Q&A and to sort of ask some questions along the way if you've got any that I can answer. My name is Dante St. James. I think we'll just share that screen and get underway. There's not a huge, heavy amount of stuff in this one, but it is important to understand what some of those purposes are for the ads policies in Facebook and Instagram, and also understanding what those little things you might be doing that might be getting your ad rejected at the first attempt and how you can then go and appeal those as well. So without further ado, let's get this one underway, and I'm just going to make sure I share the right screen here. And I've done it. Look at that. So welcome and thank you for joining me. I hope you're all well, and I hope that your businesses are doing all sorts of wonderful things. I know that it's been a rough year for everybody, but beyond all that, I think it's also been a very positive experience for a lot of people who have been trying to do something new, especially small business owners, because let's face it, there's no time like, I guess, a crisis to be building new opportunities in. I think it was Simon Sinek was saying very recently that so many of us focus on the problem at hand rather than the opportunity at hand. And I think that was a really good quote from him. First, a little bit about myself. I'm Dante St. James, and I am a Facebook Australia New Zealand community trainer, as well as a Facebook Blueprint lead trainer for the global program that we're actually studying from today. I'm hoping to get back on the road with Facebook very shortly to be able to get around Australia and see more people, particularly in Queensland, Western Australia, and throughout regional areas of the Northern Territory too. I've done work as a digital marketer, a digital marketing associate through Facebook, a media planning professional, media buying professional, which is all about ads, and also in this creative strategy and marketing science areas, which is very, very heavy around the idea of what are the things that work best and what are the what's the data telling us about the stuff that does best when it comes to advertising on Facebook. Now, this is part of the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program, brought to you by Business Station in WA, Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory, and Regional Development Australia, Brisbane in Queensland. So if you're one of those sort of areas, thank you for joining me wherever you are in Australia. It's great to be able to bring some of this stuff to hopefully bring a bit of clarity to the Facebook ads processes. So what we're going to cover today is a bit about the Facebook ads policy and how ads go through that review process and what is actually reviewed and who is trying to review those things for you. We're going to look at the things that are showing your success through metrics that are a result of what your advertising objective may be. So if you've got a goal, how do you actually measure whether you're successful against that goal as well? And then we'll look at some of the strategies around making your advertising campaigns work better for you. So to optimize them to do better in the future if you weren't too happy with the previous campaign you may have run. Now, the first thing we're going to do is probably look into things like the Facebook ads policies. These are quite vital to be understanding because they're the difference between your ad getting out there and not getting out there, being approved or being rejected. So at Facebook, we're pretty much committed to making the platform safe and reliable places to do business, but also safe and reliable places for people to be people on Facebook as well. So we have a lot of strict policies with what kinds of ads are going to be allowed on the platforms. Things such as content on Facebook, whether it's an ad or not, needs to adhere to what we call the community standards. And those are a set of standards that are in place to make Facebook a better place for people, but also to ensure that it's a safe, inclusive, and I guess non-aggressive place to be as well, in the hope that we create a much, much nicer Facebook and Instagram as well. So this doesn't just apply to Facebook, also to Instagram. So you should be adhering to those community standards. And if you want to just look for them, you can actually just Google that. You just go Facebook community standards. And I do say that probably before you start doing too much stuff on Facebook and Instagram, take a read. I know it's a bit of a dry read, but what it does, it gives you all the ideas around what's right, what's wrong, and what you need to consider. But there's also a lot of stuff in there for ads, which is the advertising policies as well. So we've got additional rules for ads to help ensure that there's a safe and very positive experience for people using the platform, whether they are consumers of your ads or whether they're just people who are just having fun connecting with family and friends and chatting and working around the groups and the people that they like to be around. So this is how the Facebook ad review process works. First of all, the ad system uses automated and in some cases manual reviews, but it always starts with an automated review. The machine learning and AI algorithms are pretty smart. Sometimes they do get it wrong though, but they're pretty smart in about 98% of cases where it's going to get it right. So that's simply because there's 17 million businesses, probably close to 20 million businesses are using Facebook ads platform right now. So what that means is it's actually impossible to hire enough people to do manual reviews of everything the first time round. It's just there's not enough office space to be able to do that. And the other thing is too, it just would make the whole advertising experience on Facebook way too expensive. So to make it so it's cost effective for you and also able to be done for us, we've got to have a system that reviews your ads, your images, your videos, the thumbnails as well, because if you've got a video, there's a thumbnail on there, and sometimes people like to sneak little dodgy bits onto the thumbnails. We look at the text as part of your ad, as well as the targeting and the positioning to make sure it's not doing something that we can see is kind of trying to target specific ethnic groups, particularly also groups based on sexuality and on socioeconomic status. So typically, most ads, oh, I've actually forgot one really big there too. There's also looking at your ads landing page as well, because what it is that your landing page is part of your campaign. So for instance, we want to try and avoid that whole bait and switch. So if you've got an ad that's saying one thing, but your landing page is saying another, that can be quite a nasty little bait and switch that we like to avoid. We want to make sure that what you're advertising and what you're actually selling are the same thing. And you're not just trying to hide, do everything right in the ad and then get to the landing page and then be really, really dodgy or potentially illegal. So we've got to make sure that when you put in that link to your ad, then the Facebook algorithm will scan your landing page to make sure the content in there is also in line with the community standards and Facebook's ads policies as well. That's just simply, again, if we're going to send people off our platform onto your website, we want to make sure we're not sending them for something that's malicious or something that is nefarious or something which is potentially harmful, particularly to younger people on the platform and those who are more vulnerable. So after your ad is reviewed, you receive a notification of whether it's approved. So it'll come through on your notifications through the regular Facebook home screen, and you'll be able to see that it's gone live, and in some cases after as well. So you might be able to see a review. You can go through and see that ad. So if you click on the notification, it can take you through to where the ad is, and you can review what was said about it. Now, if people hide, block, or provide negative feedback around the ad, we may actually have to go in there and review that ad again. So quite often it's unfortunately there's people who do this, but they'll get everything right for the algorithm to pick it up. And then what they'll do is change the content of the landing page to somehow work around the algorithm. Now, whilst we don't want to be continually going to your website and having to check up on you like a little naughty child, the fact is that people, when they get to an ad that is misleading, that's been changed at some point, or the landing page, excuse me, has been changed because it sneezed. Oh, excuse me. They get to that point where they go to the landing page and it's doing something that's not meant to be doing, something that's nefarious, something that's not quite right. Well, then we've got to make sure that everything is going the way it's supposed to be going, so that you are doing the right thing by the right way and not trying to mislead people. So once you make that change, yeah, it can come back, and people, if they provide that negative feedback, we'll go back in and have another look at it and then review whether that ad's allowed to run or not. And if you do make changes at the ads targeting in your ad, so if you go and make a change to changing it from say 35 to 37-year-old women in Sydney to 45 to 55-year-old men in Canberra, well, then that's a pretty major change to the ads targeting. So we'd need to review that again. Additionally, if you're looking at changing your creative, so you're changing the photos or the videos or the graphics on there, that will generate a re-reviewing of the ad, as well as things like your optimization. So in the case of something like you've optimized it for landing page views, or you've optimized it for click-throughs to your landing page, then that will generate a review, as will things like billing settings. So just making sure that if you change a credit card over, we do another check on there just to make sure that someone's not trying to be fraudulent. It all triggers a new ad review, which happens pretty quickly. Now, a few tips to ensure that your ads will pass that ad review process. There's three major things we like to let you know that are going to make that process a lot easier for you. The first thing is to make sure that your ad clearly specifies what the product is or what the service is you offer. That's a really big one. Vague ads, they're just trying to, again, I call bait and switch. They're doing something like a photo of a cracked egg. That's all they've got and nothing else. And then you get to the website and it's a story about, spending money, investing in a Bitcoin scheme. That's not going to be great. That's just not what we're looking for. We're looking for ads that are very clear about what they are and what they're about. So be clear, be honest, be transparent, and you won't have a problem. Second one is having ad creative that clearly specifies the product or the service that you're offering, and making sure that the creative has appropriate images with probably not too many text overlays. So you can have like a bit of text on your image. That's not a problem, but it's where you're laying nothing but text over those images, or your image is just text. That's when we're looking at that and going, this is not the kind of experience we want on the Facebook platform. It has to be aligned with what your expectations are as a user of Facebook. So you may want to advertise a message and have sell, 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 buy, buy, buy. That's fine. Make sure you do that, but in a way that fits with the rest of the platform. If you're putting something in there that's designed specifically to interrupt the experience or to somehow force feed an idea into someone without actually going with what the platform is. So remembering the platform is about people connecting with other people, and things like Instagram, where it's all about very beautiful images and aspirational lifestyle and things that people dream of wanting to achieve, then what you're trying to do is not respect the people that are on the platform. You're just trying to jam a message down their throats. And we all know how that works with things like radio and television advertising. It doesn't work that great anymore. And it really doesn't tend to make us feel particularly connected to a brand or connected to a business, especially a small business that is there to be able to have a really good, solid experience with people on the Facebook platform. Then the other thing we want to do is make sure that landing page works and reflects the ad accurately. We're talking about that bait and switch before, making sure also that the link works in all regions. That's a really important one, because what we need to do is make sure that if you're advertising to Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Timor-Leste, that one of those doesn't seem to have a block against it. So you can actually get that landing page in all those different countries. So we'll look at those in a little bit more depth here. What we're going to look is look at the first tip, which is to make sure your ad clearly specifies what it is you're looking for. So for instance, in the first example on the left, we've got hair day with color kits. So it's showing their 30 different color kits. It's got a photo of a crazy hair color. Makes sense. The one on the right though, looks like it's like a greengrocer's store or an apothecary or one of those sort of places that sells a lot of bottled fragrances and bottled essences and oils and stuff. Doesn't look anything like hair day. So that one does not adequately specify and clearly show the product or service that's being offered. So, you've got something which actually works for what the thing is that's being sold, and then you've got one that doesn't. The second tip is to make sure your ad creative shows those appropriate images without stupid amounts of text overlay, because things get messy. Even if you're a bit of a Canva whiz and you like to be able to put some overlays on there, remembering that you've got room for text above and below every ad. You don't have to cram your image full of ad text as well. In fact, when you do, a little funny thing called TLDR happens, which is too long didn't read. The human eye, when it comes to big blocks of text, if it's not used to those in the medium that's reading it, say for instance in art, or if it's in a social media platform, or if it's on a website, that we tend to skip over things because people tend to skim. As we're going through Facebook and Instagram, we're flicking up, we're going through, and we're looking for things that stand out. Now, what happens is that lots and lots of text just looks like an ad. And what have we been training ourselves to do since the beginning of time when advertising first became a thing? We flick away when we're seeing ads. We put down the volume on television when the ads come on, or we walk away. That's an opportunity to go and make a cup of tea. Or in radio, we flick to another station if we're getting 5-minute blocks of ads in a row. And the same thing kind of happens with Facebook and Instagram. If we see an ad, we just flick on past it because we know it's an ad. So what you want to do is reflect the platform you're on and reflect the stuff that's in that platform. photos that are interesting, videos that are actually honest and interesting about the product that's in there. The minute you start adding a whole lot more text, once upon a time, we actually used to have the 20% rule, which made you say that, okay, only 20% of an ad's graphic can actually be text. That's been thrown out now because there's some actually remarkable ways of using text that are very beautiful and very effective when it comes to advertising. But doing something like you do on the right there with the, you love a particular kind of bag, and then you stick text over the top of the image and you don't properly lay it out in such a way that people can read it, that's not a great experience for your brand. It's a really poor experience for the people viewing your ad. And it's an even worse experience for the platform because it's actually looking messy and just looking ugly. It's just not a great thing to look at when you're flicking through a feed, is it? And then the third tip being the one about having your landing page working. It needs to ensure that your work and accurately reflect the ad. So things have got to be in there. So if you go like dolly.com, you go through to their landing page, it works. But if you go through to the landing page and it doesn't work, your ad's going to be rejected straight away. So that's a really important thing when you're creating landing pages or content pages, say on a WordPress site, where you've got that content page actually not going live until the ad goes live. You want to actually make it so the content page is live when you're making your ad. So that may not time out particularly great with your campaigns that are time dependent as with launches and that. But what you can always do is have your page on WordPress or whatever it is you're trying to build, have a live, at least a live page in there, so that when it gets there, it can see that there's a deal that's going to happen. And then you can have a module, if you're using Divi or Elementor, you can have timed modules that actually come in and then create the offer or the special or the deal or the content that you want to have bringing in then. So just making sure that when you're setting up your campaign, make sure that your landing page already works. Now, if your ad doesn't make the cut, it doesn't make it through and it's not approved, you can visit facebook.com/account quality. Now, this is all to do with your specific violations. Now, usually they are getting better. They used to be very, very vague, and I used to be a not very particularly big fan of the error messages that would come up on ad rejections, but it is getting better now to explain some of the things that may have gone wrong. For instance, I myself had a bit of a a bump in a campaign that I was running, and what I was doing, because I'm a Facebook community trainer, I was wearing a Facebook t-shirt, and it was actually showing the Facebook logo pretty much across my chest through the entire video and the thumbnail that was showing up. So that was saying that I wasn't using Facebook's brand in an approved way. Now, for me to go through the approval process, which I do have, takes a long time to get on there, and I only really wanted this particular boost to last for a day. So all I had to do was just make sure I cropped the video so the Facebook logo wasn't showing in there. It was considered to not be an appropriate and desirable use of the brand in a appropriate way using their brand guidelines. You may have the same thing if you're using like the words Facebook or Instagram in there. You might notice there's quite a few businesses when they're talking about that, put like a little trademark sign at the end of it. That can be good as well. You can use the word Facebook and the word Instagram, but the point is to not use their particular branding as the core of what your ad's about. So if your ad is all about how to make Facebook ads or to run a workshop on how to use certain aspects of Facebook, you've got to make the workshop all about the content and about yourself, not about Facebook itself or Instagram itself. You're not making another brand the core of what your brand or what your particular product or service is all about. So this one is a lot that a lot of coaches, a lot of digital coaches kind of get stuck on. They go, but why, but why, but why? Is Facebook trying to shut me down? It's like, no, they're not trying to shut you down. They're very happy for you to be selling courses and all that sort of thing. It's just a matter of using the brand assets appropriately and not using their brand at the core of what your ad is. So account quality is the place to go. We can learn all about any sort of policy violations you may have run. Now, if you feel that it was a mistake, then you can actually request another review. But I would really thoroughly don't just jump into requesting a review straight away, because if you have more than 2-3 reviews and they keep finding every time that you're still doing a policy violation, they will just probably just block your ad account because they're just saying that you don't understand what you're doing and you're not the kind of business that should be on Facebook, and there's no support for that kind of business model on Facebook. So just make sure that you have checked your account quality. You've gone through. Now, once a month, I spend half an hour reading the ad policies at Facebook and then looking at the community standards. It takes about half an hour to read through both of those documents just to make sure that I've got it in my head every month what those policies are. If this is something which is very core to your business, if it's something that's very important to your business, you really should know these things. It's like driving a car. You can't drive a car unless you go through the learner driver manual first to get your learner's license, and then you've got to know what you're doing. Likewise, just there's no excuse for ignorance of what the policies are when they're very clearly available. So please just read them, do the time out, read what they are, and you'll go, oh, I now get what that might have been. There's tons of examples in there of the kinds of business models that are not supported by Facebook, as well as the kinds of products and services that can and cannot be advertised on Facebook. Now, finally, at the review, you are given an option to actually click on a button and have that reviewed a second time by a person. So that second time is actually usually done by a person, not by an algorithm. And so it flags it to a person to actually have a look at it. Unless it's a very, very simple thing like a changing of a word in the text, it will usually go to a person. Now, this can take a little bit longer. It's not going to happen in 2 minutes. It can take anything up to 24 hours, but that's depending upon the volume of what's going on at the time. So if we've got like a million reviews to do in 24 hours, well then it will take 24 hours, but sometimes it can take as little as 5 to 10, 15 minutes, depending upon the volume at the time. So you generally find that most of that kind of thing happen as slowest when you're up against North America and Europe's peak business times. When you're in Australian peak business times, it tends to be a little bit better. Policy violations are generally read by people in Singapore for Australia and New Zealand. So they're very similar on our time zone. So just remember, though, that you're also up against big markets like Indonesia, like the Philippines, like Japan, all in that sort of same time zone stretch with Singapore. So bear in mind that that's going to be probably a little bit slower at the peak times of business as well. Slightly before or slightly after business hours is a great time to get on top of those kind of reviews if you want to get it done a little bit quicker. Now, the other thing is too, if you edit your ad and resubmit it review, you just simply edit it, do the changes that it's actually told you to do, and then resubmit the ad to be reviewed again. And this time, hopefully, it will go through. Now, you can gain a lot of stuff once your ad is approved. Once you let that campaign run, you can then get a lot of valuable insights along the way about why the campaign is working, why the campaign's maybe not working as much as you'd like it to be working, or to give you some tips along the way to make it perhaps work that little bit better. So as your campaign's underway, before we think about how you analyze those results, take a moment to reflect that after you run your campaign, remember to ask yourself, so at the end of it, when you've run it, ask yourself, what did your ad look like? So just remember what was in there. Remember who it was you were targeting for that ad. So that's really important because we need to know whether we may be targeting the wrong people or not quite the right people. How long your campaign did run for, and also what was the total spend of your campaign. So based on that information, you can then go ahead and test and then try some new ideas on some new campaigns that are similar to your most successful one. So you'll always have this one ad that you ran once upon a time, which was really good and worked really well. So the idea is to take elements of the ones that did work, add those into your new ones so that you've got the best possible thing moving forward that's got the best possible chance of succeeding. Likewise, if there's things that didn't quite work that well, that's when you've got to think, okay, well, maybe I need to take a completely different tact here and try something completely different and not go with what I normally go with something just a little bit different. So make sure that you're able to remember, what your ad looked like, what the audience was that you try to get, how long you're running that ad for, and how much you spent in total over that campaign. Because this is important moving forward, because what we're going to do now is plan ahead our next campaign or refine the campaign that we've already got running. So it's a continuous process, advertising. We tend to like to think it's like we can spend $5 here and then it just moves on. And then, spend $5 and make 100,000. It doesn't quite work that way. Anyone who's worked with things like television advertising and radio advertising knows that advertising is something that works most effectively when it's done consistently and over a period of time. Same with digital marketing. You may have an offer that you get in there and get, and it has this amazing result, but the next day you run the same offer and it doesn't do anything at all, because people are fickle, people change, people are in different places in life, people are affected by news, economic circumstances, the day of the week, the time of the day. All those things can have a different effect on any two campaigns, so that one may work one day and the next day it may not work at all. So running some sort of campaign over a period of time, so that means you can spend a little bit less per day, per month, and then just stretch it out a bit longer. A lab enables you to understand that you have got a business goal that you can establish, that you can base on data, so that you're not just putting an idea out there, not just putting yourself out there, but you're matching what your goal is for your business to an actual campaign objective. So if you remember going to the ads platform, you got the awareness, consideration, and conversion objectives. So in awareness, you got things like reach and brand awareness. In the consideration, you got things like messages, leads, and traffic to your website, and then conversion and shop traffic. So remembering which one of those is the one you want to concentrate on that actually translates to what you want to do with this campaign in your business. Now, the usual answer to that is, I want to make money. Okay, that's great. There's a steps that you have to go through to make money. You can't just put something out there and expect it's going to make you $1 million. You've got to actually work on identifying the right customer and work on nurturing that customer through the sales funnel of their awareness, where they don't know anything about you but become aware, to the consideration where they want what you do but they don't necessarily want it from you. They go shopping around, to the conversion where they're actually ready to go and buy. So once you've established your business goal, then you'll go and create a campaign plan, which is consisting of a number of Facebook ads that you want to test and run. One Facebook ad is not a campaign. A campaign is a few things all bundled together so you can see what thing works the best. So sometimes you may run 3 different pieces of ad creative against 2 different target audiences, all within the one big bundle of cash. So if you're spending $300 a month, let's just say, you will say, okay, I want that $300 a month to perform the best it possibly can. I'm not going to spread it evenly across 3 different target audiences. I just want it to find the best one and spend most of it on the one that's working the most. And that's what campaign budget optimization does. So when you do create your campaigns, you're probably going to have a number of Facebook ad campaigns that you want to test and run and see which ones work the best. So you can work out over time what ones are, first of all, not going to be violating any ads policies or community standards. And secondly, the ones that seem to be working really well with people, that they are resonating with it enough to click on it, to go through, to take a call to action, and maybe even buy something from you. Next, we want to customize and save and schedule reports to understand how those ads have been performing. So after you get those results, you can try to take those learnings from what you've got from each campaign and optimize the next one, or even midway through your ad campaign, optimize the campaign right there so you can meet that business goal a lot better. And the whole idea on here is that you've got a much better opportunity to take feedback as it happens, so on a day-to-day basis, on whether your ad's working, and tweak and adjust things on the fly. Yes, it has to stop for a moment while it's being reviewed, but you're getting a better, more optimized ad every time you make a change. That said, it's not a great idea to be changing your ad every single day. You need to give it a bit of a while for the ads platform to learn who it is that responds best to that. And that's done best over a series of, say, 50 conversions or 50 learning events. So it could be, if I'm looking for website traffic, so it knows to send it to people who are likely to click, but the people who are likely to click on your particular ad, that takes time to learn. It's going to take at least a week, and it's going to take at least 50 people clicking on your link for it to work out, I know who the kind of person is who's interested enough to click on your link. I'll send it all to that kind of person over there. And that's when your ads automatically get optimized. But if you're going in there every day and changing your copy, you're not giving that a chance to do it. After a week, though, if you find it's just not working, great, and you're not getting those conversions, you're not even getting the 50 kind of the 50 marks against that, the 50 clicks, then change it up a bit. Make sure it's a different creative. Make sure it's go in and change the target audience you're trying to send it to. Anything, or even expand that target audience out to someone a bit more broad, particularly in smaller regional areas where the populations aren't so big. Your marketing objective should really guide the choices at every step that you're going to take. So ask yourself what you want to do with your advertisement and what do you want it to do for you. Before you look at your campaign data though, take some time to revisit what these goals are, because they are really, really important for you. You want to make sure that you're optimizing your campaigns based upon the performance of the ads, not just on an opinion. The committee of one is a very big danger where you go to someone and say, oh, look, I really think you should put a pink background on that because people like pink. The opinions are not as great as data. Data is going to tell you a whole lot more. There's a certain amount of hunches when it comes to sales and marketing, but you go, yeah, I know my audience. I know that they are going to respond to having a Queensland flag in the background fluttering in the breeze because they're very patriotic and very parochial, and they want to be able to show that they're Queensland. It's great. Okay, but base that on data as well. Don't just take it as an allegorical thing, because there's just as many people who don't watch rugby league in Queensland as those who do. So if you're appealing only to people who do, just be aware that you may be not actually appealing to people who are just not all that into it. And remembering too, places like the Northern Territory where I'm at, and also in Queensland, a lot of people actually came from elsewhere. So you don't even know how many Blues fans you might be actually offending along the way. Now, when we go to evaluate those results, we base them on the ad objectives that we set in place. So for instance, the goals that we went in and said we wanted to actually set up as part of our campaign. So let's take a little bit more of a look at that. So remember, when you start building your ad campaign, make sure you have a bit of a goal in mind of what you want to achieve. And this goal is helping you to identify what the metrics are that you're going to view that are going to tell you whether it's been successful or not. So for instance, if you are looking for clicks through to your website, obviously you want your metrics to show clicks through the website, right? If you're looking for sales, you want the metrics showing you the conversions of sales within your website. So these are the kind of things you've got to bear in mind first. So let's say, based on your business goals, the metrics you want to look at will be all about things that are meaningful to your business. So if your focus is on increasing brand awareness of people knowing who you are, or something like reach, then the success metrics you're going to be looking at, or most likely wanting to be looking at, I guess, are the number of impressions. So that's your reach, and the cost per impression. So that's telling you that the ad showed that many times, and it cost this much per times that it was done, usually in thousands of impressions. So a cost per thousand, or CPM it's called. Why is it called CPM? And when it's a cost per thousand, should it be CPT? Because M is the Roman numeral for 1,000. Just those one of those stupid ad campaign things that doesn't really make much sense unless you come from the industry. Now, if you're focused on increasing things like engagement, then your success metrics would most likely be the number of things like event responses, how many page likes you got, the number of clicks you got through an ad, or the cost of that click is going to be important to you, and the overall click-through rate. So the cost per click is how much it's going to cost for each person to click on you. That's an average over your entire campaign. And the overall click-through rate is saying, how many times do I have to get in front of someone to finally get them to click? So a click-through rate on things like banner ads on websites is probably 0.005 per thousand, which is really bad. But if it's like something like a Facebook ad, your cost per thousand may be more like 5 to 6%, which is a lot more valuable, particularly if you're on a very targeted audience who are most likely be interested in what it is you're doing. And lastly, if your business goal is, say, conversions on your website, and you're focused on those actions that are taken to get someone to convert, you're most likely going to be looking at the number of sales and the customers that walk into your store and how much it actually costs you to do those. So if you're selling a $300 widget on your website and it costs you $30, then you know it's taking 10% of the cost of that to get someone to buy it. So you know that's information that's either valuable to you or not. You're selling a $30,000 pool, and it's taking you $300 to get that person to actually buy a pool. Well, then you go, well, that's actually not too bad. $300 for a $30,000 result, that's pretty good. But if you're selling a $5 set of earrings and it's costing you $2.50 to get someone to buy them, that's not a great result at all. And likewise, to get someone to walk into your store, it may cost you, on a purchase behavior of maybe buying something for $49.95. If it's costing you $25 to get that person in the store, you're definitely not doing a good job. But if it's costing you 50 cents to get them in to buy a $40 piece of stuff, That's actually not too bad a result. Now we're going to look at because tailoring your campaign to your audience. So this is the best practices in there for making sure you know how to optimize your target audience correctly for the sort of thing you want to achieve. Now, sometimes you might need to adjust your target audience to ensure that your ads are actually doing well. Or maybe you selected an audience group that was a little bit too narrow in the past, or maybe reached too few people as a result of being too narrow. Or maybe you selected too many people who weren't your ideal customer. So you went out, I want to reach everybody in the Ipswich region in Queensland, or everyone in Darwin, or everybody in Mandurah, just south of Perth. And you're saying, well, not everyone there is my ideal customer. So you may need to, in that case, narrow the scope down a little bit. In any case, when you adjust your target audience to ensure you reach the most relevant customers for your business, you're giving yourself a much bigger chance. So when you're adjusting, it means sometimes expanding it out a bit and sometimes contracting it back a bit. But first we'll look at when we focus on the people most likely to become your customers, and we give them creative which most likely appeals to them, and we give them the words that speak in the language and the talk that they are working with, you've got a far greater opportunity to be able to connect with that customer enough that they'll actually go, yeah, I'm going to click that learn more button, or you know what, yeah, I'm going to swipe that stories ad up and read more about what this particular thing is. It's really, really important to focus in on the people who are most likely to become your customers. Treating Facebook and Instagram like a TV station and just going, put my ad out there and make it go to everybody is going to waste you a lot of money. Your cost per click is going to get really high over time, and your cost per conversion is going to be way, way higher than if you actually target in on who those people are. So you do that by knowing who your customer is, knowing what their behaviors are, knowing the things that they do and where they go and what the kind of stuff is. And you find that out by getting to know your customers. Just trying to do everything automated through automated forms and processes and automated, affiliate programs is not teaching you anything about your customer, and you're not getting metrics back of any value to you. But when you're a small business and you're trying to get people to understand exactly what it is that you're trying to do for them, and it's really well targeted to them, then you've got the best chance possible to connect with them and get that conversion out of them. Now we're going to look at the more of a fun part, I guess, is where it's the do's and don'ts of optimizing the creative of your ad, making sure that the material that you put in there, graphics, the videos, the photos, are really there to hit the target audience you want in the best way. And this is where you need to do probably the most amount of testing and iterating, is with your ad creative. So you can try different ads. You can learn if something might work a bit differently than expected. For example, you could test different ad formats to see if they result in different outcomes. So this example might be where you're advertising in the Instagram feed, but you're providing a full screen version of it to advertise on Instagram stories. And this is made really, really simple through the ads platform program, where you're going through, you've chosen what your campaign's all about, you've chosen who your target is, but when you get to the creative and you're building your ad itself, it actually asks you if you want to customize your ad for different placements. And what that is saying is that, do you want to have different shape ad on stories? Do you want to have different shape ad for sidebar? Do you want to have a different shape ad for Instagram, for instance? Or do you want to even change the creative altogether, all in this one piece of creative, to go to different placements with different kind of stuff? Now, I like to think that we send the same photo and information through, but in the case of something like the Instagram feed, you've got a caption which contains the information you want to have on your ad down below the actual photo. And because what we're looking for on Instagram is things that are beautiful and quite attractive and aspirational, and of a lifestyle that we would like to be living and achieving, then we tend to find that putting a lot of overlay of text on Instagram just isn't helping you at all. It doesn't give anyone a reason to want to stop and look, because they just look at it and go, it's an ad, keep going, it's an ad, keep going. Though on stories, because you don't have any space for text at all, so text in your ads don't show on stories, you may find you want to do like you've done this one from Wind and Wool, and actually put the text in. So if you're using Canva, for instance, use that to overlay the text on your image so it's already there. But make it so that the text isn't the whole point of the article. You're still going to be attracted to that image because you somehow resonate with the guy with the woolly jumper feeling all warm and cozy in a North American winter, or whatever it is you're about to go through. We're just going into winter here in Australia ourselves, so maybe warm woolly jumpers are a very attractive thing to be looking at. Then make it about that first, and then your words can sit in underneath it. Remember, you're attracting attention with your creative, and then you're giving a call to action in your text. So it's not the other way around. We're not going to attract attention with text. We attract attention with the creative. That's where the fun stuff is that people actually want to look at. So here's a bit of a tip. Make sure you have at least 2 different kinds of ads running so that you can test different things like copy, or test different things like the creative itself, to see what's more meaningful and to see what seems to connect with people the better. Just putting 1 ad on might seem convenient, but putting 2 ads on, even if it's just testing a different background or a different font or testing a different set of words that you're going to use in the ad, having 2 there allows you to know which one works and which one doesn't. And I guarantee you it's not going to be even. One is going to sit way above the other, and it always does. There's something about some ads that just stick out. In my case, it's kind of funny. I try to play a little game with myself to decide, which is the ad that's going to win, which is the ad that's actually going to do the best in this campaign. And I never, almost never, ever choose the right one. Now, I might run 6 different variations of ads for quite a high level campaign that may be spending $1,000 to $1,500 in a month. When I'm doing that though, I try to pick which one it is. And it's usually the one that's like a video ad that's very bright and colorful and all that. And I tell you now, it's usually the one that isn't that spectacular. Ones that are sort of bursting out of you and trying to do these really funky colors and all that are the ones that don't tend to perform the best. And the reason I guess for that is because they're very ad-like. That's what ads try to do. The ones that fit into the feed and actually seem to have something that is really, mindful of trends that people are going through, mindful of where people are at in their lives right now, that are kind of speaking directly to them and to what they're going through or the problems they're trying to solve. Those are the ones which invariably tend to do the best. Just that I still think that flashy ads to me are going to work better, but they don't. They never do. Now, there's best practices and do's and don'ts also when it comes to looking through your reporting of your ads. So based on how you define success for your business, what should you look at in your campaign to know if it's actually been successful? And in this case, you'll be looking at things like at the campaign level, you'll see a bit of a summary of how your campaigns are performing. And then it's broken down by campaign. You can then see things like which campaigns are active. You can see the bid strategy. So you can see, whether it's active, whether the bid strategy is for things like for a set bid amount. This is pretty advanced stuff. So most of us are not going to be using bid strategies, but you can view it there. You can also see what the budget is and what the results are. So the result is always going to be based upon what your goal was. If your goal was web traffic, then your results will show clicks right there. If your objective was leads, it'll show you how many leads. If your objective was reach, it'll show you how many people were reached in that spot. So it just depends what your objective is. The reach will appear on any ad anyway. I'll tell you how many people were reached by that particular ad, not necessarily how many saw it. It is actually how many saw it, because the next one, impressions, is how many we sent it to. So that usually will be higher numbers. Say, for instance, if you sent it to 1,000 and 800 actually were reached, that means that we tried 1,000 times to get it in front of someone, but it was only really noticed 800 times. And then based on that, we then calculate a cost per result. So that's when we start to decide, what that particular one is. And you can access more details of each one of these campaigns by clicking into each campaign as well. So there's a great big you can see at the top right hand of the screen, you've got the graphs there, the bar graphs. So if you click on that, it's called the chart icon. You can see metrics such as performance. You can then see, that shows you whether it performed over a period of time a certain way or whether it was up and down a bit throughout the campaign. It also lets you see things like, for instance, do people seem to reach this better on Wednesdays than they do on Mondays? This is where you're going to see that sort of stuff. You're also going to see whether the demographic mix is, so whether it's women or men that seem to be seeing it or converting with it. So you'll see both in this case, the amount that was spent being higher in women, but it was also then the reach was greater with women as well. So much greater spend, but it's cheaper to reach men, but they didn't reach as many men. It just seemed like the particular campaign in this case was very much geared towards women. And you can see things like the ad placement specific data for that campaign. So you can see whether it was scheduled whether it had its impression show on Facebook, Instagram, Messenger placements, or what called the audience network, which is apps and the websites mobile apps and mobile websites, sorry, outside of Facebook itself. Things like Huffington Post and some newspaper sites and some sort of blogger and gamer sites, but mostly apps. It's appearing ads on apps in the opening home screens of free apps. A lot of that happens. And they're things that take through ads from the Facebook network. So this is just making sure that you understand what each one of these things mean and knowing that you can get some pretty valuable information out there. If I see that and say that just about all the results came from Facebook, I go, I'm not even going to bother next time going to Instagram because I'm just spending money sending something through to a platform where nobody's interested in what I'm sending. Same with Audience Network or Messenger. As a tip, I never send anything to Audience Network because there's very few Audience Network properties that are geared towards Australian audiences. So if I'm advertising something to Australia, that's probably a very useless one. But if I'm advertising to some Asian countries, particularly to places like Indonesia and places like Malaysia and Vietnam and Singapore, the Audience Network can be remarkably effective in those markets, but not quite as effective in Australia because we just don't have a lot of a focus on it. Now, there's also a drop down which lets you toggle between different time frames. So you can see, you can break it down to your ad campaign's results over a lifetime. So from the beginning of time on Facebook to now, you can look at it just for today's results or yesterday's results or the last 7 days, or just select a custom period of time, whether it's 14 days or 10 days or whatever you want to run. If you want to see how it appeared last week, how it appeared 3 weeks ago, just for that week, you can do that as well. So just look at data from specific dates. You can look at lifetime data. It's all pretty interesting to be able to do that. But remember, it does take time for Ads Manager to learn and iterate. So just make sure that you give it some time. It's not going to appear, if it says the today thing, it doesn't mean it's today as in the last 5 minutes. It can take you, that can be a couple of hours out, up to 4 hours out. So tend to look at that stuff towards the end of the day rather than the beginning of the day, because it's going to be a lot more accurate later in the day. There's always going to be some latency because it has to go through a lot of interactions and a lot of stuff that actually gets that number in there. So in addition to those, what we call success metrics, you can also get a little bit more granular with your data. So Ads Manager offers you a number of sort of breakdown views, we like to call them, that you can use to analyze how things are going. So breakdowns allow you to see how different segments of your audience have behaved during your campaign. So on the campaign level overview page, you can see, for instance, breakdowns are divided by time, delivery, and action. So time allows you to see daily, weekly, bi-weekly or monthly breakdowns of your data. The delivery shows you how your content was delivered to people in your audience. So you can see like, how it was delivered over a period of time, whether it was delivered more on Wednesday than what it was on Thursday. And finally, action lets you decide your data by specific interactions that your Facebook audience actually took. So there's things like clicked on a button, went and viewed a page, that sort of stuff that's picked up when your Facebook pixel is installed and your domain is verified, and you can actually read what people are doing on your website. Now, on the overview page, you can also see specific success metrics down each of these different columns. So you can customize your report columns to include the success metrics specific to your campaign. So you can pick things like whether performance or setup or delivery or video engagement or carousel engagement or cross-device behaviors, things like that may be what you're looking for. You can add them in the results column. So you just put that in and it'll put it in the columns across that whole area. So you then got a new set of data you can read. This is really good because it allows you to read the information you actually need to see that is appropriate for you. You don't have to just put up with what the average is. So pretty much the columns that are set up in the reports here are set up to show the average that people generally want to find out. But if you do want to know things like how people engage with your app or how they engage with your video in these reports, you can add those in as well. Now you can share your data by exporting it as a CSV. I was about to say an SUV. That'd be very unusual. You can view it in a in a truck. But you can share your data by exporting it as a CSV, so you can read it as Microsoft Excel, or export it as an Excel file as well directly to it. So you just find the export button in the center of your reporting table. So it's a bit of a weird little toggly switch there. And that means that you're going to be able to click export and then choose the particular format you want to do. So some people really like to drill down on their data a lot more specifically than on a dashboard like this, or they may be transferring across to things like Google's Data Studio or what's it called? Mighty Metrics, can't remember what it's called. It's Mighty Metrics or something like that, whereas some really good external third-party products that actually take that data and put it into the dashboards that you set up with those different tools that are set up to give you the particular reporting that you want to have. Agency Analytics is also a very good platform for this that I've been using in the past and more recently as well, that takes this kind of stuff, you put it in, and it produces really beautiful graphics and pie charts and bar charts that you can take the clients, and they get really, really impressed by the way you've been able to take all that time to make something that makes sense to them. Now, you can also create custom reports based on the data that's most important to you that you want to highlight. So you can navigate to the Ads Manager and find the export button again. And then on the top left of the reporting tab, that's where you find that. Then you click to customize your export. So you say, what are the columns that I want to actually have? Let me just go back one. Sorry, it's got a little bit trigger happy there. You select to customize what you actually want to have in your report. So you say, what are the particular ad sets and campaigns that I want to show? And then you can choose the format that you want to go out with. So these are the kind of things you want to put in, and then you choose the format, and then down it comes. You can also click to share a link to your campaign data, so you can connect to people to go and actually see this. They authorize to see a safe version, a read-only version of this particular report. So they can't do anything in there. All they can do is read a read-only version of the report. So that's a really handy way of sharing data to clients or to other stakeholders in an organization. And once you've done that, you want to then kind of go through a process that allows you to understand that running ads is a continuous process. So that's the main reason why you're going to be doing all that reporting and looking at all those graphs, is that ads are continuous. So you want to start by creating your ad, but then you want to run the ad. Once you've run the ad, you want to then review that ad. So you're using all those little tools we just showed you to review it. And then you refine what you had. So you refine it, you optimize, you change your creative, you change your words, whatever it is that's going to work for you better. And then you create again and you go through that cycle again. So as we start to wrap up, this is a bit of a shorter one today. Oh, that's not too short. I suppose we're only 8 minutes away from full time. So the key takeaways I want you to take away with this today is that you need to incorporate some strategies to build ads that comply first with Facebook's advertising policies. Now, you may have a particular brand voice and a brand way of doing things, but you've got to make sure that doesn't clash with what Facebook's general advertising policies and community standards are. You might be a very irreverent and offensive brand. Just remember though, if that's who you are, then don't be surprised if you have trouble with getting ads through, because we don't necessarily want people to be offensive and irreverent. Oh, irreverent's probably pretty fine, but being really blatantly offensive and trying to use outrage baiting and that sort of thing to get people to respond is not really a quality experience on a platform like Facebook or Instagram. Secondly, we're going to monitor and refine your campaigns based upon how they're performing. So if they're doing well, do more of that. If they're doing not so well, do less of that and do more of the stuff that actually does work. But base it not on opinions, base it on data, base it on the reports, all those great reports you got in there to work with, rather than just poking around to 15 people in the office and saying, does this look better in pink or in purple? Don't get opinions. Get real data, test those things out. When you've got thousands of people looking at your ads, you've got really good data coming in to tell you what is working and what's great and what's not so great. So if you've got any questions, please do whack them in the chat or in the Q&A here on Zoom. If you've got questions while you're watching this on either Facebook or on YouTube is the word I was looking for, just please put it down in the comments below and I'll be able to answer those after the fact through both Business Station's YouTube channel and my own Dante St. James YouTube channel, which this will be on in the next sort of hour or so, it'll be available to watch again. And also, if you're on YouTube, please, I would really love you to subscribe so you can see more of this kind of content. And also, not just from myself, but from other people in the ASBAS Digital Solutions Program who are presenting these free webinars as well. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I hope that it really sort of helped you to understand better how to sort of not get your ads banned. And if you do get problems, I encourage you to get onto the Boost with Facebook Australia group. Now, there's actual Facebookers in there, people from Facebook who are interacting with Australian small businesses. There's myself and a bunch of the other trainers. There's 5 of us in Australia who are in there helping out as well. So we can answer questions along the way or give you some tricks that if Facebook themselves come back and say, oh, you can't do this, then we'll come and say, look, there's a workaround for this that you may want to try that's not illegal and not a problem, and it's worked for us. So we can give you different tips and tools to make that work. And if you've got the time as well, please feel free to scan that code and give a bit of feedback to the guys at Facebook to let them know whether I did a good job, a bad job, a terrible job, or whether you'd like to see more of this kind of content. This event was called Do's and Don'ts of Advertising, and my name is Dante St. James. I welcome you to send me an email if you'd like to, or pop over to my own Facebook page at fb.com/I am Dante St. James. My old full name is actually being taken on Facebook. Would you believe that? How rude. Thanks and have a fantastic day. I hope you've got lots of value out of this. And there's a whole lot more of these kind of things coming through in the coming weeks as well, right through to the end of September as part of the ASBAS Digital Solutions Program. Have a great week or a great weekend. Now it's Friday. Woohoo! Day off, hopefully.